Hot Springs Village Inside Out is a closer look at the greatness of Hot Springs Village, Arkansas, and the surrounding areas. People, places, experiences. Hot Springs Village, Arkansas is one of the most beautiful places on the earth. Join me, Randy Cantrell, and my co-host Dennis Simpson as we engage in weekly conversations to explore Hot Springs Village Inside Out. Today's show is brought to you by Central Arkansas's favorite radio station, KVRE. Find them on the dial at 92.9 FM. Stream them live at kvre.com. Close attractions. That's the subject of today's show. We look at the close attractions to Hot Springs Village, inside and out.
And here we are once again. You people, and Randy has said this before, we should sell the outtakes because we're sitting here talking and just kind of.
No, we should probably do better show prep, but the audience already knows how we roll. So.
Yeah, the likes of us, you do. The likes of us. Well, it's the day after the St. Patty's Day parade, the world's shortest parade, which they measure every year, and it's 98 feet, 99 feet. And Randy, so far.
Do they have to shorten it? Is anybody trying to chase that and take that away from them?
The Guinness Book of World Records people show up every year and they measure the road, and the road hasn't changed. So, there's that. And there's a reason they call it Bridge Street, is because it is the road that is the bridge over this huge 27-foot tunnel that goes underneath Bathhouse Row, or underneath the highway there.
How many people show up for this thing?
Oh, we'll have between 10 and 20,000. It's a lot of people. They have
a 98-foot parade.
For a 98-foot parade. And which makes viewing a little bit of a problem. A couple of years back, we actually did a live remote. I was one of the cameramen, and who's the guy that did the nuts, one of Doug Lackey's friends who did the live remote, but John Cooksey.
The audience wouldn't know.
No, they wouldn't.
No,
this guy, Kid Goodman, who sings a lot out here, they would know him. He was actually one of the our MCs. But anyway, we tried to broadcast it, but you have what you'll have literally is down central, which is blocked off, which is a bad idea. Mm-hmm. But down central, you will have 2.5 miles of parade floats waiting to turn and go 100 feet and then get back onto Malvern Avenue and go back out and whatever. So if you want to stand on the 100 feet of Bridge Street, it's extremely crowded. If you want to be on the other side of Malvern, that's where usually Diane and I are standing. There's a lot more room there, and you can see the floats pretty well and everything. But the Dallas cheerleaders, we have the Elvises, the traveling Elvises show up. I think this year the group was Foghat. We've had Three Dog Night. We've had
Foghat.
Grand Funk Railroad. A lot of fun stuff. It really is. And for those that don't know, and this show is a potpourri of a lot of things, but we're going to talk about things you can do roughly 30 minutes from the village, that kind of thing, which includes hot springs, that includes Lake Washita, it includes a lot of other things. But it doesn't look like it today, but it's about to be a beautiful spring day. I mean, just a couple of days ago it was 70 and nice there in Dallas too, right?
That's about like it is there. Well, it's sunnier. It's sunnier here than it is there, but it's in the 50s, and the wind is howling. So
it's reminding us that it's March and it's in between. It hadn't decided what weather to be yet.
That's correct. It's toying with us.
But it's exactly.
Well, I've seen a number of people over there who've wanted to visit, and we continue to get emails and messages from folks who want to come and visit. And the big question that I get, especially from first time, is, okay, well, what is there to do? Yeah. So, I had a friend that came over, had high school, college age kids, and she and her husband came over and they got an Airbnb near one of the trails, and they're runners, right? Mm-hmm. They're the kind of people that make you and I sick. Athletic and get out and run.
Nauseating.
Yeah, and they wanted to know, they were going to stay in Hot Springs and just snoop around over there. And I convinced them to come and stay in the village, and they were glad that they did, because, they knew, well, we can go over there, spend a day, spend a few hours. So the big question, so for if that's you, if you're watching and listening to us, you're thinking about making a trip into the village, maybe you've never been before, and your question is, well, what is there to do? Well, the answer is quite a lot. It kind of depends on what you're into, which is where I went with the conversation with my friend is, like, what kind of things do you like to do? So your answer as the resident expert on the area, and I don't care, take any track any track you want. For those people that want to hike and they're into wilderness,
yeah,
as opposed to the people that, museums, shopping, dining, entertainment, that kind of stuff. There's at least those two kind of courses that you could take. Not that one's exclusive to the, not that they're mutually exclusive. You can do both. But like, see, some of the stuff that you're going to mention, I can tell you straight up, I would have zero interest in, just because it's how I roll. Right? I'm not.
You're not a traveling tourist, is what.
Yeah, no. I mean, I'm out. And it doesn't have anything to do with hot springs. It doesn't. It's you and I had the conversation. Eureka Springs. Up in northern Arkansas, and I'm like, I get there and it was perfectly fine. We stayed in a couple of different places, but I'm like, okay, I don't get it. I did get it, actually. I just, not my thing. It could be your thing, and I'm not judging. To each his own. So I'll shut up now.
But it depends. It depends so many times. And I mean, let's face it. If you're coming to hot springs, you typically, you at least enjoy the outdoors, or you at least, you're comfortable outdoors and you enjoy the beauty and the nature and whatever. And, it's hit on me, but because I've recently just picked up a drone and done some drone work, and it's really just smacked me between the eyes. Hot Springs, Arkansas, Hot Springs Village, the area is about water. That's as simple as it gets. That's absolutely as simple as it gets. We have 9 golf courses in the lake, and 9 golf courses in the village, and we have 11 lakes. Well, just outside the West Gate here, actually I flew a drone up the other day, and I could actually see Lake Washita from right here. It was amazing. I'll put some video up later, but it's probably maybe as you drive the car, maybe 6 miles. And that lake is completely surrounded by National Forest and by Corps of Engineers land. It's 26,000 acres. It has 200 islands on it. It has no homes, 0 homes on it, because it is a protected water source for the city of Hot Springs. And by the way, I was out there the other day. They're building a new intake facility over there.
Now, how big is that lake?
26,000 acres. It's about the entire size of the state of Hot Springs Village. And just, Jason said something the other day, Jason Temple, the resident engineer for us here. When we talked about the village and what's required to do the village, he reminded me, which I say reminded me, I didn't know, the island of Manhattan, New York is a little bit smaller than the village. Let that sink in.
Yeah.
The island of Manhattan is a little bit smaller than the village. And I was like, whoa, because I never put it in that size. Well, once again, the island of Manhattan is Lake Washita. And Lake Washita is surrounded by 1.7 million acres of national forest that goes from Little Rock, probably 10 miles outside of Little Rock, to 65 miles inside Oklahoma. It's a long, narrow band and just pristinely beautiful. I'm a thrifty guy. I know,
and it's mere minutes away.
Oh, it's well, you and I have taken a ride out there. Last time you visited, I said, let me take you up to Iron Springs. Let's drop around, just take a look. And it's surprising. I mean, 20 minutes, you're in the heart of the national forest without cell phone reception as soon as you want to get there,
Yeah,
but it's, anyway, I'm a thrifty guy, and I like seeing tax dollars used well, and I like seeing efficiency. And you look around at 1.75 million acres of trees, and you're thinking, what are they doing? Oh, it's forestry, it's growth, it's protected. It's a good use of money and land, if you get my opinion, but once again, that surrounds Lake Washita. The Blakely Mountain Dam is right beside that. And that goes out into a river, which is the Washita River, which actually is where Lake Hamilton in Hot Springs says that they start. And Lake Hamilton has a lot of development around it. The joke there is if they have any more traffic on Lake Hamilton in the summer, they're going to have traffic lights on the lake. And then it goes from there into Lake Catherine. And once again, all three of those lakes, they call it the Tri-Lakes area. Lake Washita, completely neutral, completely natural, I should say. Lake Hamilton, extremely developed. Basically, you would call it West Hot Springs. And then Lake Catherine, which again is mostly protected because it's a semi-industrial lake. And then it goes back down into the Washita River. But all three of those lakes are controlled by Entergy, the power company here. So they regulate the height and the levels and all that stuff. But for example, on Lake Washita, 200 islands, island hopping during the summer is a great thing. Rent a party barge, bring your own party barge.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. The activity on these three lakes, is it wildly different, or is it
wildly different? It could not be any different. When you're at Lake Washita, which once again, maybe 7 miles from here as you drive to get there, there are, there's
time out. To get to Lake Washita, you're going to
Are you go out the west gate?
Are you going to go to the state park? Or where are you going to go?
I'm going to go to the Little Blakely Trailhead, which is, I think, where I sent your friends when they ask about this.
Yeah.
The Little Blakely Trailhead is on the way to, and it's down a little gravel road, but it's a point across from the state park that probably has 31 miles of hiking trails just on this little bitty area. And you get to the end of the gravel road and you think, where are we? And there's a little bridge that goes over, and you walk out over this point as long as you want to. There are people that just go out there and camp in the woods. It's a very, very natural, beautiful place, and very.
And I'm going to take this gravel road how far? So if I'm in a car
3
and I'm
miles.
not in an SUV, then am
I?
Well,
yeah, I do it in a Mercedes with short sidewall tires, but I'm not that smart. Okay. And I don't used to do it all the time, but as you're going down what we call Strawberry 3000, you turn literally at the Home Plate Cafe where we were just talking about.
Yeah.
Turn left at the Home Plate Cafe, and I think it's 197.
Well, they didn't know we were talking about it, but
yeah,
we're talking
they
about
didn't.
it.
They do now. They do now.
They do now.
As you're going down 197, it's the last big turn to the right, and it's maybe 3/4 of a mile before you get to the intersection where they just.
My eyes are rolling up in the back of my head. It's not.
I know.
It's not very far, and it's
not very far. Little Blakely, just look it up. There's a
Little Blakely. I'll put a link.
Part of
I'll find
the Forestry Service, and they have a PDF that has a big map that shows you everything.
And out of the west gate of the village, it's just, it's minutes. It's not
just a couple of minutes. It may be 10 minutes, maybe 15 if there's traffic.
Yeah. Okay. So I can access the lake there. Can I put a boat in this lake? Can I?
Yeah. Oh, sure. You can put a boat in the lake over at the state park, which is the full 15-minute trip. And it's a monster. I mean, they have a map, and then they have the real map of Lake Washita. But like I say, it's over 210, 211 islands, and people will just pull their boat up.
I can fish. Sure. I can just cruise around.
You can fish. You can spearfish. You can go to the restaurants on the lake. There are a couple of restaurants on the lake. The Corps of Engineer has.
But as far as water activity, I'm talking about.
Oh man, jet skis, anything.
Okay, so I can do anything I want on that lake.
Yeah.
Well, I would think it's so huge.
Oh, it's enormous. And you can do most of those things on Lake Hamilton, the one just below it. It has more restaurants. It has a whole lot of houses. It has all that. Frankly, it has more pollution because it's got a lot more pressure on it. But it's still a really beautiful place. But that's where, and I always wanted to bring this up, there's some gems of the area that we're very remiss to miss. If you want nature and you want some beautiful areas, you need to go to Lake Washita. If you want to see some of the prettiest flower gardens you've ever seen in your life, you go to Lake Hamilton and you go to Garvin Gardens. This spring, they will have probably 90,000 tulips. And it's a sea of every kind of lily, tulip, bulb. Oh my Lord. There's literally acres and acres and acres, and it is on Lake Hamilton. You could actually put your boat in Lake Hamilton and go up to Garvin Gardens.
And we're now how far outside the village are we when we go to
maybe
Garvin
25 minutes, 35 minutes. Yeah. To get to Garvin Gardens. Yeah. But Lake Hamilton is very, very developed, but this particular piece of Garvin Gardens was donated to the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville. And so it's a school property, to be exact. Mm-hmm. And they actually keep it very pristine. You wouldn't know you're on a congested full lake any other time. It's just It's a remote corner of that. And from that, the dam goes over Carpenter Dam, which is a beautiful area, into a very historic dam. And it goes into Lake Catherine, which has Lake Catherine State Park. There's some beautiful 35-foot waterfalls there. Enormous rocks the size of this house that the water flows over, that makes beautiful spillways, and there's a beautiful hiking trail that way. Do you want the hack for Lake Catherine State Park? You want the hack?
Mm-hmm.
When you pull into the parking lot, there's a sign that says, waterfall hikeway, whatever. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you can get on that and you can walk 1.6 miles or something like that up through the woods, and it's kind of a vigorous walk, or you can just park on the other side of the parking lot and walk up 300 yards and you're at the same waterfall. So there's the hack. The waterfall's at the very end of this big 1.5 mile walk.
They trick you into exercising.
I know that the mm-hmm. diabolical people trying to trick you into things. So does that give you at least the Tri-Lakes area? Does that give you and frankly, I hadn't mentioned this, but you talked about your friend. There's Magic Springs, which we're going to be doing a show with them very soon. Mm-hmm. That's an amusement park. It's a water park. They have Magic Screams in the fall, where they have a Halloween themed party.
Where's this located?
This is just right beside Gulf of Gorge. It's right beside the National Park in Hot Springs. Gulf of Gorge, which is the campground. And Magic Springs, by the way, it is to die for. It really is to die for. And that's one of those things. I mean, think about it.
For non-campers like myself, you drive through there and it's like, I think I could camp here.
I'd stay here. Mm-hmm. Well, and so to explain, it's a serpentine creek that goes right around the entire campground and all the way through it. And it's gorgeous. It's to die for.
It is.
And anyway, I bring that up. That property is right adjacent to Magic Springs, which I mentioned to your friends that were coming. But the other thing, and that, if you're coming here and you want to do the commercial thing, we have the commercial thing. We've got that, Magic Springs, that kind of thing. Right beside that, not 2 miles from there, is the Panther Mountain Lodge and Ranch. And they do housing and whatever, but you can also do a trail ride there. And yes, they have the nose to butt horses that, are always just very docile, but they have more aggressive trails if that's what you want to do. Right. And there's actually, we talked about Lake Washita. There's probably, they run along part of the National Trail. There's probably 25 to 30 miles of horse trails you could use along Lake Washita with stunning vistas out over the lake. If you're making notes, and I see you making notes, Bear Mountain. If you're interested in coming to see the Lake Washita and you want to get away from it, Bear Mountain sits at the south side of Lake Washita. It's about equidistant from the dam to the mouth. And if you stand on top of Bear Mountain, it's just an old flat place that they smoothed off on top. They had a pavilion there at one time, but it is a 180-degree view from the east to the west of nothing but 26,000 acres of lake. It is stunning. You turn back around and look the other way, nothing but national forest the other way. So Bear Mountain is the place, and it's about 7.5 miles of gravel road to get up there, but a really, really beautiful view. That's another place where you could take and ride your horses if you wanted to.
And Bear Mountain is how far away from the village?
Probably 45 minutes. It's 15, 20 minutes the other side of Hot Springs. So it's a healthy little jaunt.
Okay.
But I want to say, and I know we don't have a whole lot of time here, but I do want to mention, Randy, that, 11 lakes in the village, nearly 30 miles of hiking trails, pickleball, basketball, miniature golf, tons of golf, tennis. We have a lot of people that come and visit and say, well, what are those other things? And I give them the list, and they look out at the lake for a few hours and they go, well, maybe I don't want to go anywhere. This might be good enough for me. Does this sound familiar, Randy?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, very much so. In fact, the friends that I sent over there, that's pretty much what happened. They'd never been, I think they might have 100 years ago been to Hot Springs, but they had never been to the village before. And so they came over, and I think they were there for like 3 days or so. 3 nights, 4 days, something like that. And the kids ran the trails, and they went to Hot Springs. They ate at a couple of places that you suggested, and that was really about it. The rest of the time, they just stayed in the village. They cooked in their Airbnb. You know, they made the run to Brookshire's, and they came back and they just cooked in their place and had a great time.
And to be clear,
the kids were running the trails, and they just they went into Hot Springs to eat at a couple of places that you recommended. Otherwise, they came and they dined inside the village or they cooked.
Well, what I was getting at was they weren't disappointed at the places I sent them to, I don't think.
Oh, no.
They just realized.
They were just like, nah, wait, that's enough. We're good. Yeah. We're good right here.
Well, and I realized my own bias. I mean, I'm very aware of my own bias that given my druthers, when I first moved here 9 years ago, now, once again, been coming here for 20 years and buying and selling here for 20 years, moved here permanently 9 years ago. And I remembered probably 3 to 4 days a week, I was driving into Little Rock or to Pine Bluff or to Hot Springs and, taking care of customers. Right. And man, it was not a year and a half. And I was like, yeah, let's turn that down. I don't really see the need I'll do remote work for you. Yeah. I don't want to come to Little Rock anymore. I don't want to come pick up hardware. I don't want to do that daily commute thing. It'll spoil you in a heartbeat, which is what they found out. Right.
Yeah. And the great thing is, because Hot Springs is, well, let's talk about the bypass and so the bypass is upon us, presumably. I mean, how far
not
away?
Really, not really.
Okay, it's not,
because they were hoping they would open it in March, and the deadline was August.
And now we've
had some really big rains lately,
yeah,
and they've had erosion under some of the overpasses, so it's going to be November. But that said, after 10 years, I've literally waited for 10 years. Yeah, it is upon us in that way. Yes, after all these years. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so right now I'm going to leave the village and I'm going to head to Hot Springs, and it's going to take me how long to get there?
To Bathhouse Road is going to take you 22 minutes. You're going to go down Fox Pass. To put you downtown right at 22 minutes. Now,
when the bypass comes in, that's going to shave. What is that going to do? Cut that in half?
They're going to say 10 minutes. That's what they're saying is 10 minutes off.
Okay. So come on, for those of us that live in the big city, 20 minutes. You kidding me? I mean, it takes us that long to get anywhere. Yeah. Okay. So roughly 20 minutes to get to Hot Springs. Shopping. I mean, dining.
Two world-class hospitals.
You can certainly dine inside the village, but I get it. There are some famous and infamous places in Hot Springs that people like to go to. Anything, I'm going to use the word urban, right? So I mean, if it's like, well, I'm not a wilderness person. Yeah, I like to look at the trees and stuff, and I might, a quarter of a mile hike and I'm done, kind of person. I mean, Hot Springs is your place.
Yeah.
Right. But it's within spitting distance, which is the great thing. Then you can come back and you got the peace and tranquility of the village. You're not in the middle of Touristville, like you are in Hot Springs. And if you go there's some great antique flea markets.
I love the little dragon.
Yeah, the little, so Rhonda and I go into Hot Springs. I forgot the name of the place. It was, I went on Google and it was one of the top rated places. It was huge. Huge. I'll put a link in it. Anyway, there's a fella and he's got old toys, right? I'm just kind of a sucker. I've got other dragons, kind of sucker. And I look at this thing and there's no prices on it. And so Rhonda asked the fella, said, "What do you want for that?" And he looked at her and he said, "How would you give me $7?" And I'm thinking, hold out for $5, right? And she's like, "Sure." And I'm thinking, I told her.
She's a soft touch.
No, I told her once we got in the car, I said, you realize you wrecked his day. Because he immediately, when you said yes that quick, he immediately thought, man, I should have told her.
Did I say, I'm at 10.
I should have told her 10. Well, I'm just thinking it's this toy that the parts move and stuff, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not
got batteries in him?
But I'm not thinking the thing works. Okay, and then he does this. It walks.
Let me hear it.
You can't see it walk because I'm holding it. But
sure. No, I got it.
But the feet move. I'll look him in the camera, and you'll see here what he does here in a minute.
Any grandkids like this?
You know, they've only seen video. They have not seen him in person yet. Oh, when they come over, they're going to... So,
now, if he only
you go to Hot Springs, and this is what you can get for $7.
$7. I loved it. I saw the video, and I thought that was just too darn cute. I loved it.
Yeah. So that's how I spent my $7 shopping allowance in Hot Springs.
And you could have been five. You could have had two.
I enjoyed that, you know. And I was texting you some of the placards and some of the idiotic signs and stuff. Funny. You know, some of them were kind of funny. So
let's talk about the downside of Hot Springs. I love Hot Springs, but there's two fallacies. There's two issues that you need to know before you come to Hot Springs. Number one, you cannot sit in the water. It's 146 degrees. It will scald you, and it is radioactive. But other than that, you'll have a great time in it.
It's
really
radioactive too. Yeah.
If you look good, glowing, it's the stuff for you. You have to remember, and people go, well, but they used to get in the water all the time. Well, that's true. And they actually watered down the water to temper it down. They got it to the right temperature. And as we talked about in one of the other episodes, the 360 episode, they put you in the bath right beside that one before they put you in the mercury bath, because we all know how good mercury is for you and how helpful that can be to your digestive and rehabilitational systems, right?
Yeah. Well, you know, these were the days before antibiotics and stuff too. So
and people ask what happened to the
before
penicillin, and that's what happened. Antibiotics.
Yeah, penicillin happened. That's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's that. And what's the other
downside? I'm sorry.
What's the other downside?
The other downside is Bathhouse Row itself is over Hot Springs Creek. They literally built it over the creek. So here it's a valley, and the water runs down from both sides of the valley. One side has springs, the other side is just the city, and it runs down into the middle of the street, which goes into drains and goes into this 27-foot tube that goes under all the way out to Lake Washita, Lake Hamilton, which is fine and wonderful and great, except for one thing. The left-hand side, as we're looking, is that south? The left-hand side is the national park. The right-hand side is the city. And unfortunately, semi-tractor trailers, dump trucks, fire and ambulance, police, everybody get to go down that same road because that's the road. So if you say, and this is not a backhanded criticism or whatever, it's just the reality. The way that it's set up, remember how we were talking about Gulf and Gorge a minute ago? Okay. If the police don't come down the main road, the police have to go out to the national park, and they have to drive 35 miles an hour instead of trying to speed to help people out. So there's a natural bottleneck, and it is the Bathhouse Row. The city is literally built around this bottleneck. So if you say, well, we're going to stay downtown and it's going to be just beautiful and wonderful and woo,
right.
Yeah.
Well, but if you're from that island called Manhattan, you're going to be right at home.
Yeah, wouldn't bother you at all.
Going to be right at home.
But the number one comment we have from people here on the lake for all of our Airbnb rentals is it's so quiet and peaceful. And you said it the other day, Randy. You said it. You said when you're from a place like Dallas, what about the traffic noise?
Well, it's just a drone. It's just this constant drone that you're used to. It's why, you know, my habit was to go out and walk between 2 and 3 a.m. Yeah. I'm an insomniac. You know, so I would get out because 2 or 3 a.m. and that drone here in the city, you don't hear it. You don't hear it. By 4:30, it's in. It's kicked in. It's kicked in.
Really?
Oh yeah. So, you know, there's a sweet spot there. I don't advise people to go out walking necessarily, although pre-COVID I did it with great frequency, because it was the most peaceful time if you're in a big metro area like this. You know, now the sky, the sky's never going to be like it is there. There's just way too much urban lighting going on. You know, you can see stars and stuff, but it's not like there are people in the city who've never experienced that.
I know, because they come to see us, and in August and September, out this way, out north toward the national forest. You have to understand, Hot Springs is back over that way, and the national forest is back this way. And I'm orientated a little here, but that's generally the deal. But there's 1.8, 1.75 million acres of national forest this way, where there are virtually no lights at all. And there's 250,000 acres of that is pristine wilderness. And you go, oh, I'd love to drive through that wilderness. You're not listening. Wilderness. There's no roads. So much less being any light pollution. So this way, back over this side, September, October, and really August through early October, the sky puts on its own show. And we talk about the you can see the Magellanic Cloud about the 15th of August through September, based on the time of night, about 10 o'clock most times. You can literally go outside, look up, and it's humid. It'll be more humid and warm in the winter like that, or the summer like that. And you think, okay, well, there's just kind of like this little fog. No. Let your eyes adjust, and you will see literally millions of stars. And I'm not talking planets, of course, but stars.
Right.
And if you want to get a idea, a terrestrial idea of what the sky really looks like, come out here to some place like this where it is pristinely dark. And
but the nearest city, so you got Hot Springs, which is 22 minutes by car away, and we're not talking. I mean, how big is Hot Springs?
That's what I was about to say. If you include the area around it, Royal and Amity and some others, I would say Hot Springs is 55 to 65,000.
Yeah, so we're not talking a big city. So no. I mean, if they turned every light on in Hot Springs, it still isn't going to compare with a suburb in DFW.
No,
right?
No,
because
no.
just the massive humanity. And then if you go the other direction toward Little Rock, you got Benton, which is
35,000.
You know, and that's another 20 minutes plus the other direction. So just gives people some idea. There's just nothing to like the sky like there is for those of us that are in a city. And you don't have to be in a place like Dallas Fort Worth. I mean, you could live in a city of 100,000 and it's going to look way different than it does.
Well, one of the criteria that I judge a city on is, do we have a Red Lobster? And yes, we have a Red Lobster. I want you to know, we're not just Hicks, Randy. We're not just Hicks. We have a Red Lobster. And it was closed last week because they were painting it. The whole building.
Right.
And for what it's worth, just across the lake, some of you, and I know some people are listening and you can see some of this, the trees just across the lake, that's actually Gary Mouton's house back there, who we're going to have on again real soon. I went out yesterday morning. I'm sitting here on the couch looking out this way. And I said, Diane, here comes the bald eagle. And she said, well, you have better eyes than I do. And no, you can just see their white head, which is, 8 inches long or whatever. And I went and got the 30x zoom camera and took a couple of shots. Now it's hard because he's literally 250 yards away. But, before I moved to the village, I didn't see the bald eagles anytime. I would have to take they have a cruise that you can take on Lake Washita. The state park department has where you can hop on a pontoon boat, usually in January, usually below 20 degrees. And, because you want to get on a lake at that kind of weather, right? To go see bald eagles, right?
Yeah.
Now, I think they do that just so they can make a buttload of money on the hot chocolate concessions when you come off the lake. Because, man, it's bitterly cold to me.
Well, of course it is.
But that said, that's kind of a sneak preview. And I think we touched on what I wanted to share. And that is, well, let's go back to it real quick. In case last fall, right down here at this is a 210 acre lake on the west end of the village. We had a black bear got in the lake and swam across the lake, got up and went into the national forest, and people are on party barges. And, this is on a busy day, there's 5 to 6 boats. On Memorial Day weekend, there's 6 or 7
when
boats.
It's really crowded.
Yeah, really crowded, dangerous. Yeah. But we had a bear swim across. I've had a 8-point deer swim across and come up in our yard, and a guest downstairs taking a video going, oh my God, there's a deer in the backyard. Is he okay? All that to say, it's real. It's natural. It's, and as I've said before, it will bite you. It is not a video game. It will bite you.
Yeah. These are not domesticated critters.
Yeah. We no.
Well, it's just, we've all described it the same way, and I think the first trip that people make to the village, they get it. It's just that exhale. It's just that you pull into the gate, and it's just this massive sigh of relief that comes over you, because I have described it to friends here in DFW who have never been over there. They'll always say, "Well, I mean, is it like in the country?" And I'm like, "No, it's rural. It's not urban, but it's not like being in the country. It's like being in a park." The best I can describe it, it's like a community of houses and citizens who live in a park. And I think that's accurate.
It's a park that has, you typically cannot see houses from the main roads. It is 25% permanent green space. It has green buffers everywhere. And it's what did we say, Randy? 18% developed, 20% developed?
Well, a third. No more than a third developed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 2/3, and we're talking about the parts that can be developed.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 51 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like that's going to change anytime soon.
Well, and a lot of people that aren't familiar with it, Randy, you bring up a good point. If you're not familiar with it, your friends say, is it living in the country? Okay, well, let's play the ball with living in the country. Living in the country is fantastic. You rarely have a paved road. Most times it's a gravel road. All the roads here, majority are paved here. You typically don't have trash pickup if you live in the country, or you have to, subsidize or find that. You certainly don't have ambulance care. You usually don't have Wi-Fi or good internet in the village. But it's a place that brings, we call it rural burbia. It brings a little bit of the city. Yes, there's some regulations, but they pick up your trash. Yes, there's regulations, but you have 2 or 3 different internet providers, and a paved road, and a great police service, and a great healthcare service, and a great ambulance service, and all those things. I've lived in the country with.
Well, and you and I leave your house, and you leave your stinking door open.
Yep.
I mean,
yep.
Dude leaves his front door. Now he's got a storm door. That's closed, and I'm like, you going to lock up? You're going to, okay, well, you don't do that in the country.
No, you don't do that in the country. And my joke is, if you like to live at the end of the road in the country, you probably are prepared to get your stuff stolen every 2 to 3 years. Because I mean, they're
right.
And one of the caveats, and I don't throw this out lightly, and I know we need to wrap it up here, but I don't throw this out lightly. One of the reasons we have such low crime is because it's easy to understand. If God forbid, there's a major crime that does happen at my house, Randy. I call the police. I call our local service guys that are deputized, and they call the gates, and they say, "Hey, be on the lookout for a silver Mazda with a flat tire on the front." Is that you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you're at the gates. Where are you going to go? You're not getting out of here unless you go through a gate. The unmanned gates are highly cameraed. I mean, they know who comes and goes through the unmanned gates, and the manned gates are manned. I mean, it cuts down on a lot of potential, because I mean, where are you going to go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's a whole bunch of reasons to come here and visit. There's a whole bunch more reasons to move there and make the place home. And, we're going to start talking more and more about that. All right. Say good night, Dennis.
Good night, Dennis. And for Hot Springs Village Inside Out, I'm Dennis Simpson. He's Randy Cantrell. See you next time.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Hot Springs Village Inside Out, a podcast where Hot Springs Village, Arkansas is the star. Please subscribe to the podcast. You can do that by visiting our website, hsvinsideout.com, and tell a friend.